Hey, thanks for hanging out and checking out this Black Sabbath song with me. I'm gonna keep the intro and outro relatively short because it's sort of a long song, and I tried to upload half of this song earlier just to see if the YouTube algorithm would allow it to be posted or if it would be blocked, and it was partially blocked, so I'm a little hesitant as to whether or not this is going to work. But my good friend Nick is highly recommending this song, so I want to at least attempt to do a take on it. So let's go ahead and get comfy, grab some headphones or stereo, speaker setup, or whatever you got. I want to get that ear candy to hear everything in this mix. So just invite you and myself to tune back into the internal space. Notice our patterns of breathing. Maybe choose to slow down just a little bit. Simply noticing what comes up. Without attachment, without judgment, without control. Without the need to control. Without the need to do anything other than breathe and be and melt into this, what I would assume is about to be an epic Black Sabbath classic. Alright, here we go. All right, Black Sabbath, Wheels of Confusion, The Straightener. Yeah, I honestly am not familiar with this album. This is the first time I've ever heard this song, so I'm not sure if that's what one track is called or if this is two tracks in one video. I'm really not sure. But that was really cool. I can definitely understand why they call Black Sabbath the grandfathers of metal. Yeah, just pleading my ignorance here. So I've heard, Iron Man was one of the first songs that I ever learned on guitar. Obviously, I know War Pigs, so the two stereotypical Sabbath hits are basically as far as I've gone with this band. So I was long overdue for giving this a really critical listen, and yeah, I'll try to be brief, but can't guarantee it. Might as well stretch out on this one, whether or not it gets taken down or not. So one of the first things that really caught my attention was how the production really felt like a sign of the times. It really felt like they were taking that metal spirit and really pushing things to the limit. Of course, this is in the beginning stages of really finding the crisp, full, the thickness of lush productions. It's been a journey as sound engineers have been perfecting the craft over time, and I'm not sure what year this is. The remaster's from 2014. I would guess maybe 74 or earlier. Maybe this is late 60s. I don't know. But it definitely felt like a little bit of a rougher recording, at least compared to even late 80s or, once Metallica like reached stardom and, early 90s. Those recordings were really thick, really pretty close to what we're hearing these. Well, I mean, close enough. But you can definitely hear that progression from 70s to 80s metal to 90s metal to 2000s metal, and I would say that it's pretty similar these days to the last 2 decades. I would say metal has had its kind of standard. We've reached that pinnacle of the standard of production when it comes to that genre. So that was definitely my first thought, was okay, wow, this is definitely a dated recording. That's not a value judgment at all. That's not to say one's better or not. Obviously, one has more of a more refined, thicker, fuller, you could say on some objective level that, the more pristine recordings are better. But that's totally subjective. It's almost it's just a matter of taste. There's going to be people who just have that nostalgic factor with some of these old recordings and that would say that that's better. Anyway, this channel isn't about comparisons and competition or anything like that. But with all that said, the crispness, crispness, that's a funny word, of the cymbals was really, I was like, wow, the cymbals are right on top. When we talk about the way things are leveled in a mix, what's loudest, what's most present, what's most in your face. Didn't even really feel like the vocals were necessarily that, but it felt like the cymbals were just, they were very bright and they were really in your face. And they sounded good. So it was about 2.5 minutes in, and it seemed like it was turning into maybe not a part 2, but definitely a significant change in the structure. So let's check that out real quick. Yeah, so there was that whole first 2 minutes of a distinct song riffage, a verse or two, I can't remember. segue. And then we settle into that bluesy sort of rockin' riff, and I don't remember how long that goes because I feel like it settles back into like the original groove. I guess not quite. What's that sound? Are you hearing that? Do you feel like that's synthesizer or like a affected guitar signal? I can't quite tell. I would assume synthesizer initially, but I won't claim to know. So that is the original riff, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Okay, so it took about 2 minutes of that bridge. So I'll call the first 2 minutes section 1, and then it had about a 20-second segue, and then about a 2-minute bridge, and then we're back into part 1 again for the next verse. And I would say that goes on for about maybe 2 minutes, minute and a half. Oh, that's right, because right here is where I wrote down something that I want to bring up. So let's just roll it from here. Just listen about 10 seconds here. So we got our second bridge. Okay, right there. Doesn't that sound like it's louder than the rest of the song? I was sort of caught off guard by that. And that would be a very metal thing to do, to have the whole track at, you know, about here, and then for your final breakdown, just bump it up like a couple dB, you know, just push that mix bus a little bit for the last quarter of the song or whatever, almost the last half. And I'm gonna look at the waveform when I get done with this, and I'll type out whether or not it actually, if I can see in the waveform that it got louder during this section. It definitely felt like it. And it was a distinct change in production too. Like the guitars, I could be wrong, but they felt pretty like mid-center as far as panning, as far as like where they are in the stereo spread. And then, and this is a classic approach to dynamics isn't quite the word, because that usually refers to volume in music, but as far as production goes, production dynamics, where that just simply, I'm just referring to like changes that you can make that have, you know, an impact that you're going for. And something you hear a lot in like Tool or, you know, modern metal is you'll hear a certain section where everything's like pretty centered, at least as far as the guitars go, and then maybe it gets to a chorus or a breakdown or something, and everything wings out, and you just have that fullness. So that was really cool to see. I'm not saying they invented that necessarily, but it's cool to see like an earlier example of that happening in a metal track. You know, and this is, I'm sure, before the term metal even started being used. But yeah, so it pretty much just goes on from there. The last 2 minutes is pretty much just like an epic uproar of, it ends up dueling guitarists, and I want to say this band only has one guitarist at a time. Let me know, am I wrong? I'll say a third time, I don't know anything about Black Sabbath other than that Ozzy Osbourne is the man of the hour. But yeah, and speaking of, I really did enjoy his performance earlier on. I was sort of paying a little bit of attention to the lyrics, and I liked the picture he was painting. I'm going to be honest, I only really listened to the first like couple lines, and then attention faded to something else. But yeah, so there's two guitars going on around the last bit of the song, and it was sort of interesting because I don't know if they were trying to create a sense of chaos, but it did feel like, I don't want to say they were conflicting, but definitely competing for our attention, right? So let's just take a listen to a little bit of that ending guitar solo. And I would say at parts, it does feel like counterpoint, which is the musical term for, you know, how you'll have harmony when you create different chords, or different chords could be played together and create a harmony. Counterpoint is basically harmony that you make through melodies. So competing melodic lines might join up together to create certain harmonic implications. Silly stuff for just saying different melodies going on at the same time. It's basically what counterpoint means. So it starts where they're basically just doubling. So you can tell that it's two guitars recorded separately, and it almost creates a little bit of a slap delay because there's a bit of a time difference between the two tracks. But at this point, they're, for all intents and purposes, I don't know that phrase, is it? For all intensive purposes, for all intents and purpose, I don't know. But they're basically just a double track, which is a common technique for all sorts of genres. Okay, so that's where it splits. And before we listen to that too, I just want to say I do love what's going on in the background here. That I guess it's a guitar line, just a cleaner guitar. It almost feels like an organ or something. I don't know what it is, but I like it. It definitely sets up a cool feel. And when I was listening to this the first time in the meditative space, I was starting to see, like, I don't know, almost like some Lord of the Rings stuff, like the battle of whatever it is, Helm's Deep or something, and the Two Towers. Those sort of like rainy, like dark castle sort of vibes, and something epic is about to happen, or is happening now, is sort of the imagery I was getting. Okay, so not to cut it off, but I should have posed the question before we listened to it. Like, where do you find your attention is going? Are you primarily focused on one side of the spectrum, one of the guitars, or are you just letting it wash over you, and like certain swells will catch your attention up here, and then it'll do something like that over here later on? That's kind of, I mean, I listen to music for a living, essentially. I'm pretty good at critically listening and hearing, almost like multitasking when it comes to listening. So I'm sort of hearing both simultaneously, but those swells and like accents definitely are catching my attention. Then I'll notice what that one's doing for a while. And so yeah, I'm kind of curious what their intention was with doing this dueling track. I like it. It's cool for sure. Oh, and the other thing I want to say was that so far they're still doing pretty much not the same thing, but they're doing similar things. So it's not chaotic. It's not competing with each other. It's not even quite counterpoint at this point. Anyway. Yeah, so if I had to guess, I would say their main intention for that dueling outro would be just simply to create a sense of intensity, which they definitely achieved. And again, I love that whole section. I love the main progression of it. That's really cool. And yeah, just great intense energy. Yeah, what else can I say about this? This is kind of one of the first times I've really listened to Black Sabbath, and it was cool. Definitely sort of felt like the darkness of it. I was seeing some just like beasts and I don't know. Yeah, just like those earthy colors, just like black and red, and yeah, it was a really interesting style to meditate on. And yeah, thanks, Nick. Appreciate the recommendation, the request here. Hope I did it some justice for you, and hopefully this video does not get taken down. So keep the requests coming, everybody. If there's anything you like or don't like about the video, don't be shy to comment. And if you enjoy the video, a like really goes a long way for the YouTube algorithm. Just lets the bot know that people are enjoying it, and it's a simple thing to do. So if you did enjoy it, I would very much appreciate that gesture. And all right, so I will be back next week or whenever I do another video, and much love.